Well, good evening and welcome to the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District Facebook Live event that is, again, being recorded on the Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. Like always, we're going to continue to wait a moment as I'm looking on my device now as we can speak to see if we're running live, and it looks like we are, and everything, all systems are to go. I'm asking for anyone watching this video to please share, as the information we're here to share with you tonight. We're trying to get as much reach as we possibly can. We're trying to use as much technology and mediums that we can to get out to the residents of our community. So again, welcome to all of you that are watching this on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. This is intended for the residents and businesses or those that are familiar with the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District. That would be the communities of Brentwood, Oakley, Knightson, Bethel Island, Discovery Bay, Marsh Creek, Byron, and Morgan Territory. So welcome. I'm going to give it a moment, and what we're going to do is our normal format is I'll do a brief introduction as I'm doing here now. I'll kind of be a little repetitive in the beginning, try to get as much reach as we possibly can, and then we'll be sharing you a video. We did a We Are Listening initiative for multiple months. We got many frequently asked questions. And the goal here tonight is to continue to educate and inform all the citizens of our communities. And we're going to have a 3-minute video, and tonight's topic is on firefighters' pay and pension and benefits, as that's one of the frequent questions that we had. We're going to watch a 3-minute video, and I'll highlight some topics that aren't covered in the video, and then we go right into a Q&A, a question and answer session. I would also like to highlight that the questions tonight, they don't have to be related to pay or benefits, but those are welcome. It could be anything related to the fire district, as this is another opportunity to continue to get educated and informed. All of these videos are being recorded. We have now, as of Friday of last week, a splash page on the very top link on the district's website is a splash page that has all of the videos that I'm going to be discussing over the next couple of weeks. And so this is the 3rd week we're doing this. Again, this is around firefighter compensation and benefits. We've already had 2 previous weeks. We talked about an update on COVID and a response to what we've done in the We Are Listening initiative. And last week we discussed response times. And each of those sessions are followed by a Q&A. And so those are all now recorded. They're available on the website. So if you've missed any of those, it is encouraged to go back and look at them and listen to the questions and answers that were given, as there's a ton of information. There's a lot of history on your fire district. And again, you'll hear this from me multiple times. Our goal is to educate and inform here tonight. So this is going to be recorded. We're also doing town hall meetings, which is a different format than this. Tonight, I'm going to be focusing the video on a very specific topic. The Q&A is open to whomever is here and has any questions. But the FaceTime, when we go do the live events, or we do, I should say, the town hall meetings, which you need to register for. Those are more of a state of the district. We talk about our challenges. We're talking about what we're trying to do to be able to correct them. And we talk about some next steps and how to get some more information. And we spend a good amount of time also on providing answers to questions. We also have community leaders from respective communities that we're going into. So historically, we've had the city managers and mayors and or vice mayors come in, and they can provide a little clarity from either of the cities. This Thursday, we're going to be focusing on Bethel Island, the township of Bethel Island. And so again, those of you throughout the district, everyone is welcome, even though it's one of the communities within our jurisdiction. Everyone is welcome to be there. Tonight, we are allowing 1 hour to get through the Q&A and the video. We're asking that if you do have any questions, that you start posting them now. I think it's important because there is a delay between Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope for that information to get in to us. I also want to put out there as a disclaimer is we post the questions as we receive them. We do not engineer them. We do not mess with them. We take them as we receive them. And the only times of which we don't respond to a question is if we feel that it's already been addressed and or it's been somewhat repetitive. There are some times that I do not have the response or the answer to a question. I will never insinuate that I'm all knowing. but I will tell you that I'll follow up with you offline. I'll give you the best response that I can. And if needed, if it's not answered, any specific questions at any time, it's encouraged that they come back to future meetings, because it's important that, again, we want to educate and inform you as we move forward. If you see me looking off to the side, I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I don't miss anything. There are future opportunities again. So if you leave this meeting here tonight and maybe in your travels you think of something that wasn't asked, or you want to ask again, bring it to a future meeting, just because we'll be focusing on the future topics of the criteria required to fix our problem, the thing about taxes, and another video on achieving a viable, sustainable solution to our problem. Those 3 videos, any questions, again, are going to be welcome. So please share this. Again, I look here on my phone to see we have a good amount of followers that are coming in tonight and multiple shares. So if you're watching this, please share it. I've said this on previous videos. I'm going to repeat it here tonight, that we are trying to get as much information we can out to the businesses and the citizens of our jurisdiction. Again, the communities of Brentwood, Oakley, Knights, and Bethel Island, Discovery Bay, Byron, Marsh Creek, Morgan Territory, 128,000 residents approximately. That goes to about 155,000 people in our jurisdiction when businesses and employees come into our jurisdiction. It's a very large reach. And I know that my staff, our members, firefighters, we have a hard time getting the information out to our citizens to let them know what we do, and it is imperative that we get the information out to you. So the format, just to repeat, is I'm going to conclude my introduction. We are going to be going into a video that is going to be talking about firefighter compensation and benefits. Once I conclude that, I will expand upon some items that I want to bring forward to those that are watching and be archived, because this will be recorded. And then we'll open up to a Q&A and we'll work to satisfy all of them. So again, thank you for being here tonight. I'll continue to say I don't take your time for granted. I know that's very competitive, managing your family. I'm a family man myself. And to be able to manage your family, respectfully run your businesses and run your home, but also to become engaged on the fire district, something I don't take for granted. So start populating those questions. Enjoy the video that we're about to show you, and we'll get into a Q&A here shortly. Thank you.
I do get a lot of questions on a regular basis about how the district compensates our firefighters, and also a lot of questions about the pensions that firefighters receive. Some really fair information that people need to understand is, number one, all of the information for employee contracts is all available on our website. So if you want to go and look at it, it's there. Secondarily is our members, and when it comes to pay, they're between 15 to 20% less than all of the firefighters within Contra Costa County. And so we are trying to make sure we competitively pay the firefighters within our system so we can retain them. If we don't pay them competitively, we will lose them. I want folks to know, what I want them to understand is the district has, for many years, been doing our due diligence to make sure that we address pensions. There are obligations by law that the employees need to pay, and our employees pay 100% of their contributions. The district continues to work through and identify how we can do pension cost savings. Our members are part of a defined pension compensation plan that is very uniform throughout the state of California. Lastly, what I want to note is that our employees pay a good portion of their pay into their retirement, higher than most of any industries that you will find. The district is doing everything we can legally, and that we're obligated to do, to be responsible with it. And it's really important that people know that our employees invest heavily into their retirement to receive that benefit. It is challenging on the retention side to be able to know that they can just go next door or go to any agency throughout Contra Costa County and get paid 15, 20, 30% more than what they do here. So previous of serving as the fire chief, I worked as a battalion chief within this organization, and over that 5-year window is when we lost those 48 firefighters. We let them go, not because they couldn't perform, not because they weren't good at what they did, not because they weren't an asset to this community. They were future leaders. They were not only future leaders, they were future battalion chiefs and potentially maybe the fire chief of this organization. Due to the lack of our funding, we lost very strong assets in our organization, and now they're leading other organizations far away from us. If we do not continue to correct the situation that we have, we'll lose more members just like that. The members they have in the organization, they're so committed to this community at a cost. And so the fact that they're overrun, they're under-resourced, they're not compensated as outside agencies, but they stay committed to be here is something that I do not take for granted. And I appreciate our members sticking around and persevering. I'm hoping that through future things that we do, that we can give them the support that they need so they can have a healthy and successful career.
Okay, thank you for watching that video. And yeah, just to be clear, I think that this is probably one of those topics that many agencies, really aren't open to talk about, but I want to let you know that I am. I am the one that really saw a lot of comments and confusion. And I thought that it was really important that we take time here tonight to focus on not only the compensation and benefits of our members. I think that there's two sides of the coin. And when it comes down to providing public safety to the communities and the citizens of an organization, it is looked through by the citizens of receiving that service, and that has merit, and that's what we're here to do, is serve. There's also the other side of the coin, that you have those providing that service. And to obtain a position, any position within fire service, is really competitive. It is really hard. And you do not just arrive there by just raising your hand. It's a very competitive process. It takes anyone 3 to 5 years that actively wants to get an opportunity to be a firefighter. And when that opportunity, and that's what it is, it's an opportunity to serve for any Indy, much less East Contra Costa Fire. It's a huge sacrifice and commitment to get the education, the training, and to be qualified enough to be able to make the job. It is a lifestyle. It is a career. It is not a job. And it is something that you have to be fully committed to be able to be an expert of what it is that we're called to do. And for those reasons, when it comes down to pay and compensation, it has been a challenge for this organization as we struggle to increase service levels to compensate our employees fairly. We are not trying to overcompensate. We're nowhere near even entertaining that would be a concept that we have to battle with. Our members are 15 to 20% lower, paid less than all of the agencies throughout Contra Costa County. And I've said this in other forums, but again, from the employee's perspective, or trying to, as the fire chief, I am the general manager, I am the CEO, and I'm trying to run an effective business as reasonably with the funds that I have to be able to provide the best level of service I have. But the number one commodity I have that makes our services worthwhile are our people. When you call 911, it's those people that answer the call, that arrive at the front doorstep, that execute and utilize the tools and equipment that we have. And the competition process, as I stated, is very hard. And we try to hire the best qualified and the best experienced resource that can ultimately execute our policies and procedures to effect rescues, to fight fires, and to mitigate threat to the best ability that we can. And so for that reason is when folks come into our organization, it is a choice. You see, myself and our members, and we're here by choice. Many of us have the opportunity that we can choose to work elsewhere, but we choose to work here. And we want to serve here. This is the community. I came as a volunteer. I promoted through the volunteer ranks. I'll speak to volunteerism here in a minute. But I think that it's important to note that competitively trying to, within reason, compensate and pay our members to invest into them to ultimately provide the service when someone calls 911 is critically important. And it's an investment, and that's exactly what it is. And so not being, historically, we were 40 to 50% below other agencies. And it is actually a strategic initiative of the fire district. And if you go to the district's website, you can see our strategic plan. And I really recommend people look at that. But one of the strategic initiatives is to, within reason, within what the budget can hold, is to competitively pay members within the organization so we can retain them. I said historically that we did lose a tremendous amount of firefighters because we had non-sustainable solutions and our members were not compensated anywhere near average of other agencies within our community. And we want to hire the most qualified individuals to provide the service levels that we have within our organization. And so over the past many years, and we negotiate on a regular basis these contracts, and we try to do salary surveys throughout the community and adjacent communities to ensure that we are trying to stay competitive so our members know that we're investing into them. We lost 30 to 40 members over a 5-year window because we had non-sustainable solutions and we were not competitive within the market. And I had a 5-year gap. I still have a 5-year gap, but we had no employees in the organization. In 2012 to 17, the people we hired in that range are no longer here. And so being sustainable is also about making sure that we have the personnel to invest into to provide the ultimate services. Most public safety agencies, 70 to 80% of all of their revenue goes to the pay and benefits of their members. The members are our service. When you call 911, they answer the call. And we also know the citizens almost demand when they call 911 and a resource arrives on the front doorstep, they want to have the most well-trained, most physically fit. They want to have a doctor, an Olympian, and anyone to mitigate their problem. They want to have the most skilled and trained people on there, and so do we. And so we're in this struggle, service levels, pay and benefits. And right now we are we're within average. We're still 15%, 20% off average. And that's something that we need to continue to work on to retain the members that we have. And when it comes down to pensions and obligations, we're in a defined benefit plan. Our members pay handsomely also out of the pay that they receive into their pension plans. It is our part of what we call memorandums of understanding that we negotiate on a regular basis, but our members pay their full contribution to their retirement plan that they're required to by law. And we manage it in a manner of which is all part of, again, all the contracts that I stated in the video are on the website. We do everything within the best of our ability to manage when it comes down to pension and pay. But the contracts and agreements that we have are the things that the employees, again, know that we're investing into them as like agencies throughout the state. And otherwise, if we don't invest into them, and they go elsewhere. And that's something that we constantly need to look at, is trying to increase and maintain service levels, but obviously invest into and take care of our members, which are our number one asset. And that's a struggle that we have, and that's what we've been trying to do. But the fact is, we are nowhere near the highest paid firefighters, and our firefighters receive an equal benefit in regards to not only in regards to retirement, and that's the reality of the industry and where we are. So we take this very seriously. We look at it. If you participate in our finance meetings, understand how we handle negotiations and the things that we do. All of our negotiations look at our 10-year financial model. We make sure that whatever the pay increases are for our members, our number one is sustainable with the revenues that we have for a long-term period, not short-term, but a long-term period. And number two is we try to be competitive within the market to retain the people that we have. And so I would say that at any time that this organization invests into their employees, it is clearly measured, and the board really looks, where's that fine balance to staying competitive within the market and also maintaining the budget. And it's a long process. Those conversations don't happen overnight. And we have a very diligent board when it comes to that respect. And so the contracts are important, the employees are important, but the service levels are important too, and there's a fine balance. Strategic initiatives, being sustainable, and being competitive within the market to maintain our number one resource, which is our employees. I also want to speak to volunteers. Volunteers are something that come up on a regular basis. They come up in a majority of our forums. The first thing I'd recommend is that anybody that is watching, go to our website, go into the strategic planning tab on the homepage. I take that back. That's not where it is. Yes, it is. It's on the strategic planning page on the press releases, and also on the top tab of the homepage, press releases. I put out a press release about volunteers and how we've addressed volunteers and how we try to maintain volunteers. Volunteerism has been very problematic. Again, I stated to you, I came from those ranks. We tried to hold on to those ranks. Over the decades, laws have changed. The standards to be a volunteer is equally that of being a career firefighter. We learned that everyone that wanted to be a volunteer, due to the amount of training and the time and the investment and energy it took to become a volunteer, they stayed with us just long enough to build their resume and to leave. It took us a short amount of time to realize that we were competing with the community college district. They also bring people on and train them and get them equipped and help them get hired on by fire agencies. Volunteers are not free. You got to train them, provide oversight, give them the equipment. There's workers' comp, the insurance, and there's a lot of other things that go into volunteerism. We could not keep the numbers up. It was a revolving door. It was a huge investment, hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain that program. And we realized that they were just coming to go for experience. So it isn't a manner of which the district did not look at it, did not try to hold on to it. I oversaw the program from 2000, I believe, 6 through 8. And we just couldn't hold on to the program, and we didn't have the numbers to hold on to the program. So if anyone reads the press release and wants to talk further offline, I welcome it. But in regards to the baseline service levels, the revenue that we need is for 24/7, 365 additional firefighters. We need to do what we can to make sure that the employees understand, if they desire, why would I work for East Contra Costa Fire? Am I going to work there just long enough for it to be a stepping stone? Or do I want to make a career out of that organization? We want career members. We want to invest in the people that go from a firefighter to an engineer to a captain to a battalion chief to the fire chief. We want to hire the future fire chiefs, the future captains in the organization, and we have to invest into them. So this is a very real issue. I don't skirt away from it. I think it's very fair to talk about it, and I welcome any questions on it. But I think there, again, it's the balance of providing sustainable service levels, living within our means, but also making sure we're staying competitive to keep the employees, the ones providing the services. They provide our services. They're the most important asset our organization have. It's our people. They're the ones that answer the call. They're the ones that call 911 when you call 911. They're the ones that have the FaceTime with you. They're the ones that provide the services to you. They effect the rescue to you. That's who we're investing into. And that's what it is that we're doing, and we're trying to hold on to, guys. So I hope that provides a little bit of clarity. Our website is a wealth of knowledge. I'm willing to talk to people more offline on specifics. I didn't want to go down anywhere because I want to focus on the Q&A. But again, I welcome any questions that you may have. And let's just start with that, if I may. Let's throw our first question up if we have it. So those of you that don't know, we built a station at the end of Cypress. The question is, for those of you that may not be able to see it, is when will the new Oakley station that was built off Cypress be staffed? We call that Station 55. It currently has all of our prevention or admin staff in that station. We as East Contra Costa Fire do not have the revenue to staff anything more than 3 stations. We're a 3-station model now. We have a 3-station deficit, which means we should be 6 today. But we're operating with 3, and we know over the next 20 years we're needing an additional 3 stations for a total of 9. We are building additional stations. That's Station 55, that's in Oakley. And we're working to build another one in Brentwood to take care of the existing service level deficits that we have. When additional revenue comes into the fire district, that is one of the first stations that will be staffed. But as of right now, as I stated, we do not have the revenue to staff that station. It's equipped and prepared. And we're utilizing, so we also don't have an administrative building either. And so we are leasing space out of the city of Brentwood City Hall. We're leasing space for my office and some of our other admin personnel and our battalion chiefs. But our whole prevention bureau and other admin support personnel are working out of Station 55. And if revenues became available to staff that station, we'd find an alternative location for them, equip it, and to get members into that station. So it will be staffed when we get additional revenue to open an additional station, and at this time we can't. Next question, please. A declaration of emergency. On the district's website, on the strategic planning page, if you go through that too, there's going to be a series of what we call white papers. We did white papers on the concept of reallocation. What are you doing? Alternative means of being able to get revenue. There's this concept called the Emergency Services Revenue District, an ESARD, reallocation, states of emergency, moratoriums, or consideration moratoriums. Those white papers are a legal analysis. And when you look at that legal analysis, you'll be able to identify that the fire district is not what is called a land use agency. We provide services to land use agencies, but we are not one. The city of Brentwood, Oakley, and in Contra Costa County, for the unincorporated townships of our community, those are land use agencies, and they can legally declare a state of emergency. The fire district has a white paper that very clearly identifies, I reference you to, and I can talk to you offline if it doesn't address the question. but it very clearly identifies that we do not have the authority to declare a state of emergency. President of our board, it's President Brian Oftedal, has requested staff to further explore if there's any additional opportunities at the state or local level to call a state of emergency. So as we speak, we have meetings coming up this month, and I expect to report out to the fire board in September, is we're going to double check our math when it comes down to the white paper. And we're also going to see if there's any opportunities that have come up in the near future due to our situation to potentially call a state of emergency, to work with land use agencies to call a state of emergency. But right now, we as the fire district have no legal authority to do so. I am not a city manager. I am not a member of the board of supervisors. It is not my place to speak on behalf of land use agencies. But what I can say to you very clearly is the situation we have in East Contra Costa Fire did not happen overnight. We have had revenue. We have had challenges for a very long time. The cities in the unincorporated areas declaring a state of emergency, they have the ability, if a fire is running downhill and there's an impeding threat, there's a challenge for an historical known situation to do so, and there's a layer of complexity there. So I hope that provides you to more information, and I'd be willing to talk with you more offline. I'm sorry. Next question. Will property insurance be obtainable or to a higher expense or to an expense to afford the current manpower shortage? So this is a great question from Mr. George James. And we're actually exploring that right now. Listen, we're not the insurance agency. We don't know exactly how insurance rates, we know they're impacted. I mean, we very clearly understand that service levels, level protection, and that is why there's what's called ISO, which is the insurance ratings. And they categorize from 1 until 10. 1 is going to be the best fire protection that you can get. The top notch to number 10 means you have no fire protection whatsoever. Right now, the fire district is between a 3-4 or 4-5. We're teetering right in between there, and we're going to be going through another analysis here in the very near future. It is known that those with the 1 classification, their insurance rates are lower than those that are at 10. And those that are at 9, 10, and I should state very clearly, the 3, 4, 5, that's within the cities. The unincorporated areas could be a 9 or a 10 within our jurisdiction, and they are. We have a 9 within unincorporated areas of our jurisdiction. So be clear, we're a 4-9. Those in the areas that are in a 9 rating, they do today have a hard time having insurances. We do know that there are some areas within our jurisdiction that insurance rates have gone up 217% over the past 3 years due to fire protection. That is reassessed on a regular basis. We provide the information. We do not adjust. We do not say what the impacts are. We don't know what they are, but we are trying to figure out what they are. We do know that the lack of adequate fire protection impacts insurance rates. Being able to figure out exactly how that occurs is very challenging and difficult. We are working with not only the state commissioner's office, but also the local level. And if anyone wants to reach out to us and talk to us in that regard, if they've had any experiences, if they know, let us know. The challenge I have very clearly about the insurance ones, that I want to be crystal clear about, is I'm just stating the facts. That we do know that insurance rates and our ISO rating, they do impact properties, and that could increase, and it does increase insurance rates. I have been criticized sharing that message as a scare tactic. That's not my intent. I'm not saying that inadequate fire protection is going to impact people's insurances to scare anybody. It's a fact. Now, how it impacts, we're trying to figure that out, and I don't know. So I would state that the fact of our fire agency where we are is that it may have already impacted insurances. It may continue to impact insurance rates, and we're trying to explore it. So I hope that addresses that question. Next question, please. What is the status of the emergency exit route of Summer Lakes? If we have another evacuation and can't exit via East Cypress? Great question. So we're looking at another means of our strategic initiative is looking at not only emergency paths for us to respond to, but also emergency evacuation plans throughout our jurisdiction. Our footprint's 250 square miles, and the 2 problem challenge areas that we have are going to be the East Cypress corridor, the Bethel Island, Summer Lakes communities, and obviously Marsh Creek, Morgan territory, because there's one way in and one way out. We have been working with law enforcement. We've been working with the county, and we've been working to identify different exit routes. What I want to do is I would recommend, and I ask, my email address is bhelmick@eccfpd.org. If you don't remember that, that's okay. It's on our website. It's if you go in about me, it's there. Also, if you contact our fire marshal, he is deemed to work with our operations chief and also the law enforcement agencies to reinforce our emergency evacuation plans. So what I will tell you very clearly is there is discussions being had. There is private property in those areas that can provide for an alternative means of egress within those communities. We are also working in a longer-term solution with developers in that area, future developers in that area and land, to be able to get some extensions off of Cypress Road or otherwise, to be able to alleviate those evacuation concerns. One thing I will tell you is I do not have the exact specifics, and I want to respect the processes for the private property owners and the locations and the point of where we are in those agreements. But I do know that if an emergency were to occur, those plays are in place, and I know we want to communicate that with the communities. So we're actively working on it, and it sounds that that's of interest to you. Very specifically, the reason you asked the question is a fair one. So again, if you would like to contact myself or Chief Albert, we can bring you up to speed. If you contact me, I'll get you in contact with him, and we'll let you know where we are in that process, and we'd be willing to hear any recommendations that you may have in that process. It's well overdue. We have learned from previous evacuations that processes need to be better, and we're invested to making it better, and we are actively in those conversations. Hope that answers your question. Next question, please. Will your men enter a fully involved structure without knowledge of it being occupied? No. This is the deal. There's a couple things that we're going to do, and let me preface the no. There's a couple things. We will enter a building, and this is all case by case. So those theoretical questions are very hard. They're very hard. Every situation is very unique to itself. We will do everything that we can when we arrive at a building to minimize and do everything we can to eliminate that there's any life safety or any life risk. We are in rescue mode until proven otherwise, and there's a lot of ways to mitigate that. A lot of the times we arrive and everybody is standing in front of the home. There are times when we arrive and the neighbors say we believe nobody's at home. There are times we arrive and we don't know. And in those times that we don't know, we will continue to push the lever. And so if we do not know what's going on, our members are going to take a case-by-case situation to work from now what we're working from the defensive operation. So in our defensive operation right now, it means that we work from the outside and we methodically work to the inside. We aren't overly aggressive to go in because we do not have the fire engines, the amount of them. We're only sending 3 engines because that's all we have to a residential structure fire. And we only call aid from outside agencies if it can't stay within the structure that was involved, or it goes outside of the box, which means it doesn't stay in the structure. We can't contain it with the means at hand. Our members will continue to investigate, and if they believe there's a probable, they think there's a rescue in effect, they'll call for additional resources and they'll go in and they'll get it. So it's hard for me to paint a picture, but I will tell you is that we don't write people off, we don't write things off, but there are things where we have to manage the resources with what we have. And so we will do as much as we can and minimize any life and or property damage to the fullest ability we have with the resources that we have. But we cannot overcommit our members. Because as I've stated previously and last week on the response times, is if we overcommit and if we get compromised, we are our own 911 system. We affect our own rescues. And so we need to make sure the way that people stage as people make interior attacks or the things that they're doing, that they're there to back them up. So if they get displaced, if they get missed, if they become missing, if they start running low on air, we got to be able to affect those rescues. So it's not a case by case, but the directives, again, are very clear to our members. And we've had a lot of labor management conversations on these topics, and we spend a lot of exhaustive hours on this topic, making sure we create the safest environment for everybody. And when we arrive at scene, if we know nobody's inside, we go from the outside and work slowly in, trying to minimize life property and the property best we can. Our members are go-getters. They do not sit idle. They're going to do the best they can. If there's a life safety rescue, they're going to call for additional resources and go in and get it and effect a rescue. And so every case is unique to itself. And so it's very hard to answer a question like that in specifics, but we just don't go. There's a lot of things we have to put in place and mechanisms we need to have. But if there's someone in the house, we will call for additional resources and we will go get it. Hope that answers your question. Next question, please. Can you explain the process and thinking of deciding where the new fire station is built within the district? That's great. That's a good question. So there's a lot of things that go into consideration. It's a lot of strategic planning and looking at the jurisdiction. I think one of the compounding things we have is a lot of the existing fire stations we have, many of which we're surplusing, is that when they were built, it was kind of looked at the organization at that time. The organizations that we now protect have been evolving since 1924 to date. In 2002, the Oakley Knightson Fire Protection District, the Bethel Island Fire Protection District, and the East Diablo Fire District consolidated into one. And there were previous smaller organizations within the East Diablo Fire Protection District that absorbed and consolidated into that organization. The point I'm trying to make is our 250 square mile footprint, we are strategically looking at the best places to build our future stations and to place the stations that we have. Another complexity is you can't just drop a pin drop and say, I'm going to put a station right there. It just, unfortunately, it'd be nice if it worked that way, but it doesn't. So we have to look at our jurisdiction. We have to look at our response paths. We got to look at the best roadways, highways, freeways, bypasses. You have to look at your population densities. You got to look at time and distance. Is it rural, suburban, urban type of population? And then you have to look ideally, if we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where will we place those stations? And then you got to find the land. And sometimes you own the land, as the fire district owns some. Sometimes another public safety agency owns the land. Sometimes it's private land, and you have to buy it and purchase it. So we place the stations as close as we can to identify where they go. Our battalion chief, operations chief, Ross McCumber, has worked with our operations committee ever since he came in and working with me as a project that I started on working and looking at all previous studies, looking at the stations as they come in. Right now we're at 3, station 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and ultimately 9, and looking at the order of which they'll open. And as long as I'm here, and God forbid we ever have to close another station, the way that they would close if they ever had to. I hate saying that, but always being sustainable, right? That's one of our initiatives, what we always want to do. But again, how do they open, and if they had to close? And the reason being is it's all about population and response times. So we do have a study that is been built off of other studies that we're looking at right now, because the station that is built, Station 55, that is the station, if we had staffing today, that people would go into. We're working to build a station right now in it's Station 50, 51. Station 51 is at Grant and Empire in Brentwood. We'll place people, that would be the second station. That would be staffed if revenue came in today. And then we'd have to work on building the third station. We can dual staff. It means we can put resources in existing stations, run 2 companies out of one house as we continue to build. So again, we look at it we don't just haphazardly drop a station where it goes. We look at response rings and models, and our operations division looks at that on a regular basis, and we update that on a regular basis. Good question. Next question, please. When is enough going to be enough? We, the taxpayers, have voted this down multiple times, and yet you're looking for putting another tax initiative in front of the voters come November or next year. How many times does it have to be voted down? That's a fair question. And again, I want to make it clear is that I have zero authority to put anything in front of the residents of our communities. That is something that the fire board would have to choose on, and the fire board would have to decide if they want to put something in front of their members. I've stated this previously, and I think it's important to understand not only my authority as the fire chief, but my intent here. Purely transparently and authentically, what my job is to do as your fire chief. My job is to run the fire district, the revenues that we have. And we are a sustainable 3-station organization. And we can continue to run the wheels off this, and we are running the wheels off this, because administratively, we can run for 10 years. Operationally, we're not making it to calls, and we're being overrun, and that's a problem. So when I run the district to the best revenues that we have, it is my job to educate and inform the board of any deficits that we may have and provide recommended solutions, develop a plan, identify what the plan costs to be funded, to provide that adequate and or desirable level of protection. I educate and bring that to the board, and my other job is also to educate the community of how they're being underserved. It is also my job to explore all alternative operations, from alternative revenue from other sources. I've explored reallocation. I've done that locally, voluntarily, state-wise, and otherwise. There's white papers on it. I'm not going to go down there, but it's available, and we've discussed it, and I'll discuss again if needed. We're looking at consolidating with other organizations. If there's an added service level benefit at a no cost to be able to do that, we're looking at the feasibility. We're watching state initiatives. We're looking at local county initiatives. We're exploring all means. And my job is to explore all those means and explore all feasibility to get adequate level of protection to all of our citizens. In November, my job is to bring the findings and have all the plans. If it's a revenue measure for 1, 2, 3 stations, it is my job as staff is to prepare those, to make them informational, to let people know they may be coming, let the board know they're there. It is also my job to explore all other feasible options and put them in front of the board for them to make the executive decision to do nothing and or to do something. And if they choose to do nothing, I run the organization with the resources we have and we manage it as is. If they decide to do something, they put it in front of the people. Right now in this process, all I'm doing is trying to educate, inform, build the appropriate tools, explore all options, and in November, the board can decide what it is that they need all the information to make an educated decision. If we, through all of our alternative options, resolve this miraculously with a no tax solution, and we have the adequate level of service we have, I run the organization through all alternative revenue. If we partially address it through an alternative revenue, and it takes a measure to make us whole, the board needs to consider, do we move forward with that? And if they do, and if it passes, it's my job to implement the plan and run the organization with the revenues that we have. You know, the board moves forward with nothing, and or we put recommendation in front of the people and we have nothing. I can sit here and say that I've done my due diligence to educate, inform, and run the organization. I rose the issues. I've tried to explore the issues. I'm trying to address the service level challenges. And the board and the community have chosen the end result, right? They chose to not move forward because we found alternative means, or they moved forward and it didn't pass, and we've accepted where we are. So I just want to be clear that it's not, I'm just trying to do my job. We have a decade-old problem here. I have no authority to put anything in front of the people. I have no authority to make the ask. It's my job to run. And so if you see anything, it's me just doing the feasibility, trying to educate and inform. And we as a community, I can be a fire chief in other organizations, respectfully. Yes, I have to test and do things, but I can, my point being is, all communities get to choose to what degree they want to invest into their fire district and the benefit they want to see from their fire district. And communities invest in their fire districts on a regular time. And that comes back to a desirable organization. Now they pay, benefits, service levels, what do they provide to the community, how is it done? And so everyone has a choice. And so I just want to make it clear is that I don't have an ask, but it's my job to educate and inform. And as we move forward in November, I don't want anyone surprised on what we've done or haven't done and why we arrive at any solution, whatever that is. And I don't know what that is. And I don't know what it's going to be. But I'm trying to demonstrate to you that I'm exploring all options. So my job is not to make the ask. It's my job to educate primarily the board and also our citizens. And that's what I'm doing here. So there's no ask here today. But I appreciate the comment. I do. Next question, please. Is 9 minutes, 32 seconds an acceptable response time? What response time is your goal? No, 9 minutes and 32 seconds is not a reasonable response time. That is well above the national recommended average of what we should have. Look, fire double size, I talked about this on response times, I'll repeat it again. I mean, ideally we'd have a fire engine on every corner, but that's not reasonable. You know, we try to say by standards that our response time, that means once we hit responding and go, that isn't processing call time, that isn't putting our gear on, that's like hitting responding and arriving at your front door. You know, we want to be there between 4 to 5 minutes. And that will get us there probably closer to 6 to 7 minutes. I mean, ideally we'd be there in 5, but it may not be reasonable for us to say we can be there within 5. If we can get everywhere across our district in no less than 7 to 8 minutes, and we can have the rest of the weight of the response behind us in no more than 15, I believe we're doing a good job. I believe we're doing a good job. And we're not able to do that. We're doing double that right now. Fire doubles its size every 30 seconds. A room will flash over. I mean, the garbage can fire will have a fully involved room in 5 minutes. That time is not just a haphazard time. It makes sense. Brain death, when you're not breathing, you're compromised from breathing, 4 to 6 minutes. Irreversible, long-term deficits occur. So ideally, we be there within 5 minutes. We have a very large 250 square mile area. Should we strive for that? Absolutely. Can we meet that? It's going to be very difficult. But today, to be able to meet response times around that 7 minute across the board, unincorporated areas are going to be closer to maybe 12, depending upon where you are, how far out you are, is that it takes at least 6 stations today and 9 stations over the next 20 years. So we look at response times, we look at station locations, and it's all gauged around, again, location and staffing. And today we need 6. We have a 3-station deficit. So there's many calls today, like I said last week, that we don't even make it to the calls. So our response times are really worse than they are because we don't even make it to scene. So 7 minutes, that's full response time. That's something that we need to be able to strive for and something that we need to be able to do. And we need 3 more stations to be able to start achieving that. Next question. Can you speak in regards to what the district will be doing with the many properties in the district that are out of code with weed abatement and thus threat of fire? Sorry, I butchered that. Many things. So prior to 2019, many folks don't know this, but the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District, we didn't even have our own fire prevention bureau. It was managed by outside agencies. It wasn't managed by us. We had consultants and other agencies that did it on our behalf. We didn't have the bandwidth. The other agencies that were doing it were no longer able to provide that level for us. And I received a 90-day notice saying, we're releasing the Fire Prevention Bureau to you, which historically for decades was never a responsibility East Contra Costa Fire. That was a huge wake-up call for me because I had to establish a Fire Prevention Bureau in 90 days. That happened in late 2018. By January 2019, we had the wheels. We brought on a consultant to be able to help transition through as a deputy fire marshal capacity. We went through a hiring process in May of 19, March through May of 19. We were lucky enough to go through a successful hiring process and hire our fire marshal, Steve Albert. It was then that we started rapidly starting to build our ordinances, to build the resolutions, to be able to take care of everything. Plan review, permits, inspections, investigations, all things fire prevention. We hired 2 deputy fire marshals, a permit tech, to be able to manage those services underneath the direction of Chief Albert, which directly reports to me. I'm getting to answering the question. The point is, in 2019, we didn't provide vegetation hazard abatement really to any degree. And it's been a huge liability for us and something we needed to correct. When Chief Albert came in May of 19, we got our ordinances and policies in place. In the year of 2019, it took us a long time to be able to get our internal processes done, to be able to notice people and get things done. 2020 has been a huge banner year for us. We've had more vegetation hazard abatement in our jurisdiction. We used to work also with the city of Oakley and Brentwood. They would handle a majority of the responsibilities within their cities when it came down to code enforcement, but we now do all vegetation hazard abatement within Oakley, Brentwood, and the unincorporated areas, and we work with the code enforcement departments of also the counties and the cities. What I like to be happy to report out is that not only do we have more abatement going on, but we also now have the legitimate authority to be able to abate properties that do not comply. The challenge that we have is those processes take time. So just because someone says that property has not been abated appropriately, we have to go through legal processes and timelines that is identified by the ordinance that we have, of making notification and contact and trying to do our due diligence to work with the property owner to mitigate the property on their own. And when they do not meet satisfactory timelines, give them 2 weeks, they don't comply, we send them another notice and give them a certain amount of time. We go through this legal process all the way up to the point to where we bring it to our fire board and we legally notice and we state, if you don't do it, we'll seek the board's approval to do it. We'll seek cost recovery up to the tune of putting a lien on your property to recover the costs we invest to abate those properties. I'm happy to report it's taken a while. Our time has taken a long time to get here. But last meeting, what are we in now? August. So August and July, we had 5 properties we brought to the board for abatement, and they're in the process of being abated right now. Tomorrow night, we're bringing 31 more. 31 more. And they will be abated accordingly. And as we continue to move through this, we are working to operationally become more efficient at what we do. Everyone that has received that notice of being out of compliance has had these follow-up notices from us. They will initially be sent out an initial notice next year, and that process will be escalated and move forward to be able for us to move faster. So again, it's been very difficult with not only our staffing and the timeline and taking on these new responsibilities of doing this, but we're well on our way. So as of Wednesday, if the board approves, we are going to be, East Contra Costa Fire will be abating 36 properties within our jurisdiction, and we will be seeking cost recovery for what we have done. So if that answers the question. Thank you, and to all the firefighters and yourself for the service you provide to our community. My son just graduated, became a volunteer firefighter. I think that may be Rio Vista, maybe River Delta Fire. And I'm amazed with what you all do for the community and how underpaid your wages are. I'm just going to say thank you for the comments and thank your son for his services. Next question, please. How can the community help to get the closed stations reopened and funded to help bring relief and allow for more manpower to quicker response? As I always continue to say, as I stated in this meeting, it's about education. It's about education and people being informed. There's a lot of misinformation out there on East Contra Costa Fire. There's a lot of misinformation on our problems. There's a lot of misinformation about what the district has done. I am aware that there have been previous measures that have gone and they have not passed, and there have been very clear reasons that people have told us why they did not want to invest to and why they did not want to support the fire district. Also watch and see what the district is doing for alternative means. Things we're doing, we talk about this stuff at our board meetings, we talk about this at our finance meetings. I try to be open in all my Facebook live appearances and also our town halls. You need to know what it is we're trying to do, what is viable, what is not viable to do, and be educated and informed. And when and if the fire board makes any ask of the community, and or if staff and the board are willing to get alternative means to continue to educate the community, it's important. So ask people if they even know they have a fire district. If so, who is it? Do they know they're underfunded, they're underserved, and their challenges, and they know what they're doing trying to address it? Right now, there are many people who do not know who East Contra Costa Fire is. There are people right now that tell you that we do not have a resource issue. There's not a resource issue in East Contra Costa Fire. They don't know, they think we're Brentwood Fire, Oakley Fire, Contra Costa County Fire. They think we're part of Brentwood and Oakley in regards to our budgets are attached. We're completely independent. So information's important. So get educated, continue to stay informed. The fact you're here is a huge statement for yourself. Share this with other people, and continue to monitor the situation and continue to communicate with us how we can communicate better. That's what we can do right now, and that process is going to change in the months to come. Next question, please. Can you take time to explain the difference of the district's 90 response time will decrease as the stations 4, 5, and 6 come online? Using the district's metrics, we will then be at the national average within 5 minutes at that point. That's the goal, Benjamin. That is the goal. So look, the 90th response time, what's important to know, if you go on the district's website, that's the 90th percentile of the calls, which means that there's another 10% that are a lot worse than that. It's the 90th percentile of when we respond to calls, what you're receiving. And I don't have, but if you go onto the district's website, and Benjamin, respectful to all the questions on here, I want to answer your question, but I want to more importantly point people to where they can get this information. Every single month, Battalion Chief Ross McCumber does a report to the fire board. It will give you your response times within the different areas within our jurisdiction. It'll let you know how many times we leaned upon automatic aid. I also encourage you to download an app called Pulse Point, and you can get East Contra Costa Fire, and it will let you know, and it will alert you to the calls that we respond to. And if you know CPR and you're within an area of a cardiac event, it will notify you of that too. So what I'm trying to answer here is that the 90th percentile, our response times, the response times in their area, response times to the jurisdiction, how many times we lean upon outside agencies, how many times we're unavailable for calls. When you go on the district's website about the fire district, on the operational reports, all the information is there for you. We do it every single month. Chief McCumber does it every single month. We report it out to the board every single month. being very clear, we have urban and suburban response times, going back to the point, and the goal would be ideally to get 5 minutes across the board. That's not going to happen throughout their jurisdiction overall. In the highly populated and dense areas, we will get closer to that. You also need to look at, and I don't want to go down this hole in between what is called full response times and response times. So the time someone picks up a call, dials 911, it takes for the dispatcher to process it. You have to alert our members. They got to get their gear on. They got to hit responding. They got to arrive at scene, and then they arrive on scene, and that time ends. So when you look at our response times, it's very important to know that we want to get a total response time of around 5 minutes, and it is hard for any agency to be able to do that. Right now, a reasonable approach to be able to get the best response times that we have is that 6-station model and 9 stations over growth. If we can get between the 5 to 7 minutes and 30 seconds, that's a full dispatch time in those 6 stations within the highly dense populations of our communities, which is 85% of our population, and try to get a reasonable response for other incorporated areas throughout the jurisdiction, because they are a little bit more remote, but people also know they're moving into unincorporated areas that are further away, not only from fire stations, but also further away from stores and other critical services. So that response time throughout the jurisdiction is not achievable, is my point. There are certain areas from within the urban, suburban, or rural that we have to measure and be able to get. So I don't have a crystal ball to give everybody exacts, and I would never give everyone exact guarantees. And the reason being is time, distance, where those resources are in the system, and what's the exact amount of decreased response time we will get. I'd be guessing, and so would have a lot of other people. What I will tell you is, we do know our population. We do know how many calls that we have. We know where those calls occur. And we know how to be able to look at the averages and the response times when our units are available and not available, and what time and distances are. And that's how we arrive with the studies to be able to identify we need 6 stations. So please look at the operational reports. Contact myself. Chief McCumber would love to meet with you. I'd meet with you. But there's a lot there in regards to district response times. That's a great question. So medical responses, it says, does this include medical responses? So we respond to medical responses. Now, as I stated in the video and response times last week, and it might be good for those folks on this one to watch that one if you haven't, it's archived. We have the very first link on the top says it's fire season. You go on there and we're recording all of these and they're available there. If you, we are first responders. So when it comes down to medical aids, ideally we would respond to all medical aids, but we don't. And the reason being is because we have a resource draw. So I've been working with the county EMS and our ambulance providers to be able to choose and be very restrictive on what we go to. As I stated last week, we have calls that are called classified through an E, which is echo, through A is alpha. So A through E. E is you're not breathing, you're having a stroke, you're having a heart attack. And A is I stubbed my toe 3 weeks ago, I need an ambulance. Huge variance there. We go to the E's and D's and some C's. Ideally, we go to all of them, but we have to be very restricted, only go into the critical events, which means that the other types of incidents are ambulance-only responses. And if they respond and they need us, they call us. We're keeping our units available for the critical calls, the C's, the D's, and the E's. So yes, so all my response times, everything I'm speaking to, we do it in cooperation. That's why we want to try to get there, ideally within 5 minutes. We want to try to get there before the ambulance so we can provide first response to you. We can get you equipped and get you packaged and get you prepared to go in the ambulance. And then if need be, and folks don't know this, if you're critical enough and you go in the back of an ambulance into a hospital, they take our firefighters as riders to provide extra hands to start IVs, to do CPR, to be able to breathe for people. We go in the back of the ambulance and we provide those services. So yes, we do medicals and we do fires. The response time video can address those questions more. And if there's more questions on that, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. How much of a strain is the district under staffing wise when assisting in the state on fires? That is a great question. So we are, I'm sorry for the glare if it's coming in. It is, but it is what it is. So we are part of what's called the state mutual aid system, and we try to support it as much as we can, but we also lean on it heavily. The state mutual aid system is intended for when agencies are outside of their means and their day-to-day operations, and they have a large-scale incident where they've exhausted everything they have. They have to go to not only the state, but almost, not only the county, but also the region, sometimes the entire state, to have resources respond. A couple years ago, it's a huge hit on our members. Being able to do that is a huge commitment from our members. We have labor and management. We work very closely in identifying when we're a go, no go. We have to take a lot of things in consideration to be able to provide support to outside agencies. We have to make sure that our staffing levels are whole. We got to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of equipment. Our equipment's in service. We have backup engines. We can't send our primary and not have a backup to be able to provide the services here. So we are a day-to-day. Right now, we're on the verge of pushing out our new engines. We're still working through the training on our new engines. We're doing some final touch-up on the equipping of those engines. We anticipate we've been saying it started in July, but due to COVID and other things and training members, we anticipate within the month of August. We still anticipate within the month of August we're going to be rolling our new engines out, and that will give us some room to be able to staff up some engines. But we have to be cautious because the people we send out, we recover those funds. But that means that when members go away, their shifts are unfilled, which means that the people that are here have to pick up those shifts. So if we have people on workers' comp, if we have people that are compromised, if we're not able to take care of our critical mission of being here first, we can't. So right now, because of our resources, our apparatus, and our fleet, we're not participating in state mutual aid responses. We desire to. We lean upon them. We want to give back to them. We just don't have the ability to today. And there are times, and there was months ago, we had 8 of 36 members out on workers' comp. We had a hard time, and we managed and we maintained managing our stations. We're doing better on the workers' comp situation now. But again, with that situation it's a day-to-day basis. And right now we're not participating. But once we get the resources and our personnel are in a position to do it, we will. That's a great question. Next question, please. So Porterville, I just hit a touch spot on me. So they lost 2 of their own, and on an operational incident, and we have a countywide critical incident stress management team, chaplains and otherwise. I privileged to sit on that committee for some time. These duties have pulled me away from it, but our thoughts go out to you guys with the hit you guys took, and the fact that we were able to do anything. You guys are still in our thoughts and prayers. So we're thinking about you guys. Thank you for the time in educating the community and for your transparency. Thank you for noticing. And I would be transparent too here real quick. Is these processes are kind of hard. There's not a canned response here. These aren't. I'm just trying to give it to you as it is, and I know that they're rough. I'm just telling you my responses to the best of the ability that I can. I have high expectations of a fire chief. I expect for them to be able to be Johnny on the spot, be able to be very articulate, to be able to be well versed. I'm your subject matter expert, and so these forums do present us challenges because I don't have any idea the next question that's coming up. But look, I don't know how this agency is going to run in the future, how it's going to, where we're going to be in regards to the revenue and not. And my big thing here is not so. It's important what we do and where we end for me, but I think it's equally more important to me about but more importantly, how we do it, how we do business. There's so many things that are out of my control, and balancing that is hard. So I hope people do see that we are trying. I hope people do see that we're trying to be accessible. We're trying to be available. We're trying to be authentic. We are trying to be transparent. We are not perfect. We are flawed. And we're having a hard time communicating. We're having a hard time running the organization with the resources we have administratively and operationally, and we need help. So with that being said, you're seeing on the bottom of your screen, we do have the Bethel Island town hall meeting. Everyone's welcome. It doesn't matter where you are in the jurisdiction. Continue to ask these questions. If they're not being answered well, if they need to be expanded upon, we welcome them. On the district's Facebook page and the website, it does continue to identify all of the Facebook Lives and all of the town hall meetings. So continue to research and see them and share these events. And remember, they're all recorded on the district's website. You can go back and watch them. The next Facebook Live is going to be on the 18th of August, and we're moving into the criteria to fix our problem. And I'm going to be talking to you and everyone that watches about it being a sustainable, it's being guaranteed, it's being the right amount, sustainable, guaranteed, right amount for the service level increases that we want. And I want to be clear, I don't care how we get it, but we need it, right? So that's what this is about. So I want to thank you for being here. I know we ran a little bit long. It's an hour and 5 minutes. For that, I do apologize. Share this event, as I've stated to you before, and thank you. So this is going to conclude the meeting for tonight. We look forward to the opportunity to continue to educate and communicate with you. And until then, thank you for your support. Thank you for your constructive criticisms. Let us know we can continue to support you. I'm looking forward to meeting with you in the next event. Thank you very much. Have a good night.